Hey crew, it's Pitt and I am back with some more ancient lore. Today we're going to be diving back into the works of Marcus Aurelius Antonius. This is Meditations. We are just beginning the actual part of him. This is book 1, Debts and Lessons. We will be reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various topics that are brought to light. It's not the format for everybody, but some people seem to enjoy it, so you're more than welcome to tag along. But before we begin, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time you get lost in the sauce and do not know what I'm talking about, there will be various resources linked in the corner up here, as well as in the box down below with the source material, so that you can go back and try to discern the things that I am speaking of. I try to be clear when I am talking, but it does not always come across that way, and so it is good to have the resources to fall back into. With all of that being said, we are going to dive into Book 1, Debts and Lessons. I will try to keep this around an hour, but we will see how it goes. This is, like we talked yesterday, but this is not a coherent book. It does not read like a novel. It is a bunch of thoughts written down. This first part is the debts that he feels like he owes to other people. Okay. My grandfather, Varus, character and self-control. Now this is teaching me character and self-control, or being the example of character and self-control. His grandfather is the one who raised him. His father died. My father, from my own memories and his reputation, integrity and manliness. My mother, her reverence for the divine, her generosity, her inability not only to do wrong, but even to conceive of doing it, and the simple way she lived, not in the least like the rich. My great-grandfather, to avoid the public schools, to hire good private teachers, and to accept the resulting cost as money well spent. That is advice that could definitely be used today. The Department of Education is an utter abject failure. My first teacher, not to support this side or that in chariot racing, this fighter or that in the games, to put up with discomfort and not make demands, to do my own work, mind my own business, and have no time for slanderers. And again, this is absolutely excellent advice. It's perfectly fine to enjoy the sports that we have, right? I've never been a big sports fan. I did try to tune into football several years ago. When I first joined the Navy, everybody else was into this NFL. So I started following the Saints because I'm from Louisiana, and of course I'm going to follow the Saints. But when I did so, they were not the best team. And so I rode them as the underdog for a long time, all the way up until they won the Super Bowl, and then I was done. I haven't watched an NFL game since the Saints won the Super Bowl. I do now support LSU, which is a college, if you were unaware, but that's because my son goes there. I never did get into college sports because I didn't have a dog in the fight. Well, now I do. My son is part of the Tiger Band at the Golden Band from Tigerland. And so I support LSU, but it is not something I am willing to die on in the way that a lot of people are. If you are tying your identity into a sports team, no matter what sport, no matter which team, you're doing life wrong, and that's what this is talking about. Not that you can't support or you can't cheer, but you should not emotionally tie yourself into that. To put up with discomfort and not make demands. Sometimes that is necessary, sometimes it is not, but you should always make the best of the situation, right? You don't necessarily have to put up with discomfort to the point where it is continuous or egregious, but you do have to put up with some discomfort at some points in time, or else you will not have a fulfilling life. And to do my own work, mind my own business, and have no time for slanderers is absolutely something that everybody could take the time to learn a little bit of something from. Diogenetus, I don't know how to say it, but not to waste time on nonsense. Not to be taken in by conjurers and hoodoo artists with their talks about incantations and exorcism and all the rest of it. Not to be obsessed with quail fighting or other crazes like that. To hear unwelcome truth. to practice philosophy and study with Bacchius, and then with Tendius and Marcianus, to write dialogues as a student, to choose the Greek lifestyle, the camp bed, and the cloak. Don't waste your time on nonsense. That is absolutely true. If you know something to be false, there is no point in entertaining it. I have a saying that I use all of the time to remind myself of this. Arguing with the willfully ignorant is like pissing in the wind. You get it out there, but you just wind up pissy. Don't argue with fools. Don't waste your time on nonsense. There is really no point. They will not understand. There is no point to do that. Not to be taken in by conjurers and hoodoo artists with their talk about incantations and exorcism and all the rest of it. Now, I am a spiritual person. If you are unaware with that, you have not looked at these at all. I believe in God, but I do not believe in any of the control systems that we currently have. I believe that God is beyond all of the control systems, and He will find you within whatever control system that you are in if you are true and faithful. I do believe that there are things beyond our normal understanding that are possible. I have myself healed myself through the intervention of God, absolutely, but He allowed me to direct the forces that actually removed the cyst in my throat. And so, I do believe in some hoodoo. I don't make any qualms about that, but I don't claim to be able to cast a fireball or anything like that. There are other things that I have done, and I absolutely will stand on them. Right up into including weather manipulation. I have done that. And so some of this I take as whatever, and some of it I take as not real, but it is important that you keep an open mind about these type of things. Do not take them wholesale. Exorcism, I do believe that demonic possession is a possibility. That is, demon in a sense that is not necessarily Judaic or Christian. Voodoo, the same thing. I do believe that there are things possible. But, with that being said, almost every single instance of it is somebody that cannot do it, and they are just merely trying to tell you that they can. And so, it is good not to be caught up in that. Quail fighting, we did chicken fighting down here in the South. We outlawed it here in Louisiana a while back. I believe there's only one state that you can still do it in. But yeah, that's pledging or benefiting or betting upon the pain of others is probably not a good way to spend your time. Hear unwelcome truths. You absolutely need to do that. You need to hold in your mind that it is possible that you are wrong on everything. I do. Even the things that I know. I hold the possibility that I can be proven wrong. It is highly doubtful that you can do it, but I do hold the possibility. And if you can come at me and you can prove to me that I am wrong, I will change my ways. Period. The end. There is no equivocation, no doubt. If you are factually correct, I will go that way. Practice philosophy and study and choose the Greek lifestyle, which is simplistic stoicism type stuff and not necessarily fully correct. Right, there are good things in stoicism, don't get me wrong, but there are some bad things in there too. Rusticus, the recognition that I needed to train and discipline my character, not to be sidetracked by my interest in rhetoric, not to write treatises on abstract questions, or deliver moralizing little sermons, or compose imaginary descriptions of the simple life, or the man who lives only for others. To steer clear of oratory, poetry, and belles lettres. Not to dress up just to stroll around the house or things like that. To write straightforward letters like the one he sent my mother from Sinuessa. And to behave in a conciliatory way when people who have angered or annoyed us want to make up. To read attentively, not to be satisfied with just getting the gist of it, and not to fall for every smooth talker, and for introducing me to Epictetus's lectures and loaning me his own copy. Okay, you absolutely need to train and discipline your character. That is an absolute fact. It does not matter who you are, you have inclinations towards the shadow side. It doesn't matter who you are. Life is about moderation. You're not supposed to be excluding either the virtues or the vices. But you do need to strive for the better. That doesn't mean you have to. People can choose the wrong all of the time, but you should. It'll be better for you. Not to be sidetracked by my interest in rhetoric, and not to write treatises on abstract questions or deliver moralizing little sermons or the rest of this. To not be distracted by the insignificant, right? Rhetoric can be good. That is the arguing for a thing. It can be good, but if you get to the point where you are going into abstractions or spending all of your time in the supernatural or whatever it happens to be, you're probably doing it wrong. Now, I spend an awful lot of time with moralizing sermons and imaginary descriptions of things and talking about people who live their lives for others. All of these things. Poetry is great. Oratory, wonderful. I don't necessarily agree with this. Rhetoric serves its purpose, but you can be overconsumed by it. You can see that in American politics by people who twist and distort words to the point where they do not have the actual meaning that they once did. For instance, there are very fine people on both sides. Not to dress up and stroll around the house or things like that. To not be vain. That's what that is. To write straightforward letters. To not be deceptive in the things that you are doing. To behave in a conciliatory way when people have angered or annoyed us and want to make up. That last little bit right there is the most important part of that. You should not be bowing down to people who are aggressive towards you in any circumstance whatsoever. But once the aggression is past, and if they come to you with a contrite heart, then by all means forgive them, move on, get past it. If they refuse, however, don't. Because they have not seen the error in their actions whatsoever. They have been aggressive, they have been destructive, they have done whatever. You don't have to reconcile with those people. If people are intentionally living in a way that is bad, then you don't have to associate with that, and you don't have to be conciliatory towards them. But if they are repentant, if they want a change, if they are trying to say that they did the wrong thing, don't hold a grudge. To read attentively, not to be satisfied with just getting the gist of it, and not to fall for every smooth talker. I have several playlists. They are linked in the corner up here where I read attentively. That is what I do. We go through and we talk about these things so that we understand the fullness of the meaning, not just the gist of it. That started with the Bible. I went through, I did the Old Testament, I did the New Testament, and then I had some new beliefs. Because I read attentively. I was not just satisfied with, well, the story is kind of like this, and we can apologize for all the parts that don't make sense. I did not fall for the smooth talkers who were trying to tell me that there was something in there that there was not. If you were unaware of what I am talking about, you should definitely check out the Bible study, because I have done some things. And for introducing me to Epictetus' lectures and helping him to learn. Apollonius, independence and unvarying reliability, and to pay attention to nothing, no matter how fleetingly, except the logos, and to be the same in all circumstances, intense pain, the loss of a child, chronic illness, and to see clearly from his example that a man can show both strength and flexibility. His patience in teaching, and to have seen someone who clearly viewed his expertise and ability as a teacher as the humblest of virtues, and to have learned how to accept favors from friends without losing your self-respect or appearing ungrateful. This is another interesting one, right? Independence and accepting help. Yes, it's possible, right? You should not be dependent on other people. That is absolutely true. You should be seeking your own path. You should be striving to make as much as you can out of that path. I believe in diligence. I believe in working hard. It's a little bit hard for me because of my physical limitations, but I am striving, I am trying, I am doing. Independence and unvarying reliability. Do what you say you're going to do. Unvaryingly. If I say that I am going to do something, then I am going to try my best. I am going to put my whole heart and soul into it. I do not always succeed in that. I often fail, in fact, but I try really hard to be reliable. I never have been a reliable person. I have always thought that I was, but I was not that person. It is only a recent development that I have been attempting even to do this. To pay attention to nothing, no matter how fleetingly, except the Logos, is dumb, however. Yes, I do believe that there is a purpose in things. That is what the Logos is, the will of God, right? But I believe that that is a very flexible will. Not that it is written unerringly and that you have no choice but to do this thing. I do believe in free will. I do not believe in determinism. I have a lot on that. But you have a path to walk, right? If you keep your eye on the path, Logos, then you will get where you want to go. If you are constantly distracted by the distractions, however, you probably will not. So pay attention to your path. To be the same in all circumstances, that is a really difficult one to do, but I can understand that. I live in intense pain. The loss of a child I have not suffered, thank you, Lord, but I can deal with some chronic illness, right? My illness is a physical problem because of my spine, but I do have that, and it is hard but possible to be the same person regardless. Most of the time I am in severe pain. Most of the time you would not know it. To see clearly from his example that a man can show both strength and flexibility, that is something that I am attempting to do on this channel every single day. His patience in teaching, and to have seen someone who clearly viewed his expertise and ability as a teacher as the humblest of virtues. I really like teaching. I do. It's what I am doing here in a very large part. It is hard to teach somebody who does not want to learn. That's why I could not go to the schools. Most of your kids do not want to learn anything. And that is just true. It doesn't matter. Like, there's youth, there's exuberance, there's societal pressures, there's all kinds of reasons why they don't want to learn, but that is truth. That most are not there to learn. They're there to socialize at best and to get through what they consider a hard thing. School is not hard. School was boring sometimes. School was unaccommodating a lot, but it was not hard. Learning takes discipline. It takes effort, but you can do it. And remain humble, right? Like that. And to learn how to accept favors from friends without losing your self-respect or appearing ungrateful. You will undoubtedly need some help. At some point in your life, you are going to need something, no matter how independent you are. Accept the help. In fact, request the help. And that's a hard one for me. It is extremely difficult for me to even accept help, much less to request it. I am not the one to ask you to help me. If I am asking someone to help me, it is the last resort. And that is something that I am actively working on now. But always be grateful for the help you get, too, right? Do not be overflowing and goes, oh my God, you saved me. No, it's like, thank you, bro. I appreciate it. I needed that. Be that person. Be grateful. Humbly be grateful. Sextus, kindness. Always be kind. An example of fatherly authority in the home. What it means to live as nature requires. Gravity without airs. That's a good one. To show intuitive sympathy for friends, tolerance to amateurs and sloppy thinkers. His ability to get along with everyone. Sharing his company was the highest of compliments and the opportunity an honor for those around him. To investigate and analyze with understanding and logic the principles we ought to live by. Not to display anger or other emotions, to be free of passion and yet full of love. To praise without bombast, to display expertise without pretension. Okay, kindness. Be kind. That's fairly simple, the golden rule wrapped up in one word. an example of fatherly authority in the home and what it means to live as nature requires. Now, we do not know what he meant by as nature requires, right? That's not something that we are privy to, but we can assume, we can judge, right? Do not overtake, leave no trace, take away any trash, but leave everything you can. That is how you live in nature. As nature requires is a little bit more iffy, right? The human nature is a pretty terrible thing. Civilization is a relatively new thing. The experiment of freedom that we are currently in is a unique thing throughout all of history. And so, nature's requirements is a little bit like nature requires the lion to hunt the gazelle. It requires the bear to eat the deer. It requires you to eat the rabbit. But that doesn't mean that you have to be mean about it or excessive about it or anything of that nature. And you should be a fatherly authority if you are a man. That is true. You should show positive masculinity. That is something, again, that I am trying to do here on this channel. Gravity without airs. That means be serious, but not so serious that everybody thinks that you got your nose in the air, right? Spirit of humility, of humbleness. Understanding that you do not know everything, but the things that you do know that you should stand on. You should be serious in most things, not everything. There is a time for everything. Life is not about exclusion. It is about moderation. To show intuitive sympathy for friends, tolerance to amateurs, and sloppy thinkers. Of course, you should be intuitively sympathetic to your friends. Now, that is not a skill that everybody is born with. Some of us are natural empaths, and some of us are absolutely not. But for your friends, at least, you should be making the accommodation. Show tolerance to amateurs and sloppy thinkers. Just because they are not there where you are does not mean that you need to make fun of them. It does not mean that you need to belittle them or demean them in any type of way. And if you want a very good example of that, check out Joe Rogan, Terrence Howard, and Eric Weinstein. They did a podcast not long ago where Terrence Howard came with several theories, and Eric Weinstein showed that in a very real way, even though I do not agree with Weinstein on several key points of contention. He did that very well. The tolerance for amateurs and sloppy thinkers, he wrapped up very well. The ability to get along with everyone. Sharing his company was the highest of compliments. That is, I cannot think of a better compliment than that, right? I was always the accommodator. I'm an extremely flexible person. If you don't know what that means, you should check out the MBTI playlist. It is up here as well. It's part of the infinite integrations, and there is also the MBTI parts, where we talk about the difference between rigidity and flexibility. It is part of your core. You are either one or the other. You can accommodate the opposite, but it is hard for you. The ability to get along with everyone denotes flexibility, right? Most of the people who are flexible can do that naturally, and most of the people who are not cannot. They're very abrasive. But you should be striving to do that. Now, for me, it has always been easy, right? There are people that have not liked me on sight. There are people that I did not like on sight. But for the most part, I am really easy to get along with. If we get around a topic that is controversial and we are on opposite sides, I will change the subject. If you don't allow me to, then it can get a little bit awkward, but I try to accommodate almost everybody, unless you are just belligerently ignorant. That should be something that you are striving for. To investigate and analyze with understanding and logic the principles we ought to live by is something that we again are doing on this channel every single day. These playlists are slap-ass full of examples of that. Not to display anger or other emotions. To be free of passion and yet full of love, I think is absolutely fucking retarded. That is, and by retarded, I mean the truest sense of that word, the opposite of progress. This is how you do not. There is a time for anger. There is a reason for every single emotion you have, and if you bottle it up, you are poisoning yourself. If you are free of passion and full of love, you're doing it wrong. I am passionate towards my wife. period, the end. I am passionate towards my children, period, the end. It is different kinds of passion, but it is passion. I am passionate towards my God, period, the end. I do not equivocate for that. I do not apologize for it. I do not step aside for your beliefs for that. I am extremely flexible, but I am passionate about those things. But I am full of love too, right? I'm going to show you the example. I'm going to try not to be the bad guy. I will show you anger if you have a reason, right? If you have warranted my anger, then you will receive it. If you have warranted my sympathy, you will receive it. Whatever the emotion is, I'm going to purge it. I'm going to try to do that in a healthy manner. I'm going to try not to lay my hands on you, but that's not always the case either, because there are times when that moderation includes partaking. To praise without bombast and to display expertise without pretension. Again, something that I try to do over here. I do have a little bit more knowledge than most people. That sounds pretentious, but I try not to be that way. I try to be humble because I really do feel that way. Like, I understand that what I know is a little bit different than other people, so I try to step around it as much as possible. I do not apologize when I don't, but I try not to be the abrasive one. But there are times when some things just have to be that way, right? If someone comes to me and they say that the earth is flat, well, that is just simply not true. It is not pretentious to say that in any uncertain terms. It is not pretension to act like I have this knowledge and you don't. Let me share it with you. Now, there is a pretentious way to do that, and you can look down your nose and talk about them, or you can help them along with some of the true knowledge. That is what you should do. And to praise without bombast is don't own anybody, right? If they deserve praise, give it to them. Absolutely. Be honest and forthright every time. And that right there will help you in life, I promise. When somebody deserves praise, give it to them. But don't heap it on, right? Good job. You did very well. This is why, and that's it. You don't need to keep on. You don't need to expound upon it. You don't need to go out shouting it from the rooftops. But you should absolutely acknowledge when somebody has done something that is praiseworthy. The literary critic, Alexander. Not to be constantly correcting people, and in particular not to jump on them whenever they make an error of usage or a grammatical mistake or mispronounce something, but just answer the questions and add another example, or debate the issue itself, not their phrasing, or make some other contribution to the discussion and insert the right expression unobtrusively. Boy, if we could use some more of that these days. Every social media site is ate up with grammar Nazis, right? I'm out here to correct the way that you speak. You use the wrong word. It is they, not they. Or there, not there, right? You spelled it wrong. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. Don't do it. Like you can, in the way that he describes here, correct people with humility, understanding that they may just not know. You can go through pretty much any one of these videos, and somewheres in there I have probably mispronounced something. I have probably made a grammatical error. I have had to correct several spelling errors in the descriptions and the titles. Innocent error is one thing. Doing it on purpose is a whole different story, but if somebody just doesn't know, there's no reason to belittle them. Help to educate them in the ways that he's saying here. These are all good. If somebody mispronounces something, that's probably because they've never heard it said aloud. They may have read it, and it's how they got it. And so, through their phonics, they mispronounce it. So what? Does that make them wrong in what they're saying? They said the wrong word, okay. They used their, T-H-E-I-R, instead of T-H-E-Y apostrophe R-E. Does that make them a horrible person? No, it just makes them incorrect. And most of the time, it is not worth it even to correct that. Fronto. To recognize the malice, cunning, and hypocrisy that power produces, and the peculiar ruthlessness often shown by people from good families. So, this appears like he did not particularly care for Fronto, and that is me reading into something. I know he was mentioned in the introduction, but there was a lot of stuff in that introduction. To recognize the malice, cunning, and hypocrisy that power produces is probably through the example of Fronto. The peculiar ruthlessness often shown by people from good families. Boy, if we don't see that. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, again, look towards American politics. Alexander the Platonist. See, again, I don't know how to say that. And it's Platonist. So Platonist, not to be constantly telling people, or writing them, that I'm too busy, unless I really am. Similarly, not to be always ducking my responsibilities to the people around me because of pressing business. And again, this seems like it may be directed directly at him, not as him being the overcoming example. That's true, right? There's all kinds of people like this. Oh no, but I can't help you, I'm busy, and then they're sitting on the ass watching Netflix. Like, that happens all the time. Like, all the time. And it's whatever. If you're doing that to someone, then that's not your friend. Like, if you're not willing to help someone because you want to sit around and watch TV, that's not your friend. You're not doing it. All right, this one's another good one. So, catalyst. Not to shrug off a friend's resentment, even unjustified resentment, but try to put things right. To show your teachers ungrudging respect, the Domitus and Athenodotus story, and your children unfeigned love. You should be respectful of your friends, or else they're not your friends. And if they have a cause for resentment, then yeah, absolutely, seek to put it right. But if it's unjustified, explain yourself, absolutely, but then let it go. Do not chase after someone who will not accept your apology. Do not attempt to force someone to be your friend. It is never going to be beneficial. Never. Attempting to force someone to put aside resentment is never going to work. And even if it is unjustified, they do not necessarily have to come around to that. You should do the best you can. If you have grieved your friend, then you should do your best to appease that resentment. But not everybody is in your life for the entirety of your life. There are people that I dearly love that are no longer in my life. The people I used to sell drugs with, I don't talk to any of them. The people I used to go around hurting people with, I don't talk to any of them. I have changed my life, and I have removed myself from that, and I am sure that a lot of them are resentful. As a matter of fact, I am positive of that fact. It is not intentional. I am not trying to belittle you. I am not trying to do anything of the nature. I am trying to improve me. And if I cannot improve me around you, then you will not be around me. And I cannot feel resentment for that. I don't resent you for not wanting to change your life. I'm sad for you, but I'm not resentful. Show your teachers ungrudging respect. Absolutely. If someone is taking the time to instruct you in the correct manner of whatever, you should be respectful for that. You should be thankful for that. Again, give praise, but do not heap it, right? Tell them, thank you. I appreciate it. I get that in comments all the time. Just yesterday, I had somebody had to go on a little rant, and I appreciate that greatly. I really do. I'm here trying to teach. That is unequivocal. I do have a little bit of more knowledge than some people. That is something I firmly believe anyway. I am trying to teach, and anybody showing thankfulness for that, I am appreciative of it. And your children unfeigned love. This one is never hard for me, but it is hard for many people. There are a lot of people who are burdened by their parenthood. I was never one of those. I wanted kids. I didn't necessarily want to get married, but I wanted kids because I wanted to be the parent that I never had. And there is no doubt in my mind that my children know that I love them. like in a way that a lot of kids don't get, even the ones that live with their parents. I wound up married, and I am so very thankful for that. And that is probably part of why I was able to do this. But there is no feigning of love. My children are unequivocally right up there in the things that I aspire to be. So I love my children like most people love breathing. My brother, Severus, to love my family, truth and justice. It was through him that I encountered Thracia, Helvidius, Cato, Dion, and Brutus, and conceived of a society of equal laws, governed by equality of status and of speech, and of rulers who respect the liberty of their subjects above all else. And from him, as well, to be steady and consistent in valuing philosophy, and to help others and be eager to share, not to be a pessimist, and never to doubt your friend's affection for you. And that when people incurred his disapproval, they always knew it, and that his friends never had to speculate about his attitude to anything. It was always clear, and again, something I aspire to. To love my family, truth, and justice, that is my whole core of being. The society of equal laws governed by equality of status and speech, and of rulers who respect liberty and their subjects above all else, only recently was able to be a thing. It took 1700 years, roughly, to get there, right? He was in around 100 AD, so 1600 years. The experiment that we have here in freedom is unique. Even back in Athens and Greece, they did not have what we have. We have freedom of movement, we have freedom of association, we have freedom of expression, we have the freedom to defend ourselves from a tyrannical government. None of those were there. Right? Back in the days of Rome, you couldn't bear arms against the government. They would kill you. Now, they would kill you today, too, so don't get that twisted. But you have the right now, right? You had the right then, but nobody recognized it. The unique experiment in freedom that we have here is based upon this. Everybody is equal under the law, no matter where you were born, no matter what skin tone you might have, no matter what genitalia you may possess, no matter what you choose to do with that genitalia. You have rights. You are equal under the law to everyone. And our main problem in society right now is people trying to be the exception to the law. That is a major problem that we have. We should be governed by equality of status and speech. That one we didn't get until the 1800s or even the 1900s. You are equal. But for a long time, even here, where we have this experiment of freedom, we didn't include everyone. Now we try to. Everyone who is a legal citizen here is equal under our laws. And I say that intentionally. You have the ability to speak and to defend yourself no matter where you are or where you're from. But only here is that protected. To be steady and consistent in valuing philosophy, that is a good thing. And to help others and be eager to share, not to be a pessimist. That is difficult for a lot of people. You should be charitable, but not to the point where you become destitute because of it, right? There is the balance between charity and greed. But you should be free and eager to share. If any of my friends need something, they got it. Period. My children, my wife, my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law lives in my house. He needed help, and we're here to help him. That's just what we do. Be free to share. Don't be a pessimist. Nobody likes a pessimist. You should be aware of dangers. Absolutely. You should even express those dangers. But you should not dwell on them. It's the same with bad circumstances. Sorry about that. It's the same with bad circumstances, too. Right? Bad things happen. You can express that. You get to bitch about it one good time. But then you need to be fixing it. That's the rule. If you don't know, you get to bitch one time. Just moan about whatever it is that's going wrong in your life. You get to cry and whine and bitch and moan and whatever. And then you have to fix it. The next time I hear about it, you better have a plan. If you don't have a plan, let's sit down and get you one. because there is hope on the other side of every bad situation. I just relayed a story at the end of the last video I did, so I'm not going to do it again, about how I went through a very difficult situation and I could have turned better, but instead I turned to God, and it made all the difference. It kept me, like, I was a pessimist, but now I'm not. Now I look on the sunny bright side of things, and it has a lot to do with that experience. Never doubt your friend's affection for you. Sometimes they give you reason, right? If your friend is kissing your girlfriend, then that's not your friend, right? They don't have affection for you. They may feign it, but they don't have it. But if they do not give you a reason to doubt it, then don't. Take them at their word. They say they love you. They say that they want to be your friend. They say they want to spend time with you. Well, take them at their word. Maybe they do. Most likely, they do, even if they do not know how to express that quite correctly. When people incur your disapproval, know it. All right, be nice. You don't have to be mean about it, but you can absolutely say, no, I don't do that. No, I don't believe in that. No, I'm not going to go along with that. That is your right. Do it. Never let them speculate, right? You're going to know where you stand with me. That is more now than it was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I was perfectly fine shuffling around you and just letting you drop off. Now I'm going to let you know why you drop off. Maximus. Self-control and resistance to distractions. Optimism in adversity, especially illness. A personality in balance, dignity and grace together. Doing your job without whining. Other people's certainty that what he said was what he thought, and what he did was done without malice. Never taken aback or apprehensive, neither rash nor hesitant or bewildered, or at a loss. Not obsequious, but not aggressive or paranoid either. Generosity, charity, honesty. The sense he gave of staying on the path rather than being kept on it. That no one could ever have felt patronized by him or in a position to patronize him. A sense of humor. So, these are all good, right? These are all, again, things I strive for. Self-control and resistance to distractions. That is not to the exclusion of never being distracted. You are meant to be distracted sometimes. It is part of life. But be in control, right? Even in your distractions, do not lose yourself. Optimism in adversity, especially illness. If you don't know, you may not. This is a brand new playlist. I am an injured person. It's part of that story I was just talking about in the philosophy playlist, talking about Nietzsche. I'm injured. I have 13 discs that are messed up, 7 bulges, 6 herniations, spinal stenosis, scoliosis, and degenerative disc disorder. It's an illness, right? But it is an illness that I am optimistic in. I am grinding away that maybe something beautiful will come out of it, and I fully believe that it will. I fully believe that it already has. A personality in balance, dignity and grace together. That is, again, something to strive for. Be dignified, be graceful. Now, that's a hard thing to do if your back is messed up, but I am working on that too. Do your job without whining, and I am going to one-up this. Not only do it without whining, but accept the hardest task for yourself first. I talk about this all of the time, and I will talk about this a lot more. Choose the hardest part. If you are in a group of 10 people, and they got 10 tasks, you pick the hardest one. Not be given it because nobody else wants it, and don't complain about it. Pick that shit. That's the hardest part. I'll do it. That's mine. Not only am I not whining, I am embracing it. That makes all of the difference in your life. I will guarantee that. And I don't guarantee much in the world. Other people's certainty that what he said was what he thought, and what he did was done without malice. That's self-explanatory, right? That is absolutely what you should be doing. You should not be deceptive to anyone. You should be open and honest and forthright with everyone. And if you do not agree, well, tell them that. Don't be mean about it. There's no need to call them names or talk about their appearance. There's no need to degrade them in their intelligence or their their personal holdings or anything. No, I don't agree with that. Stand on it, but there's no need to be mean. Never taken back or apprehensive. Now that again is something a little bit, there are things to be apprehensive about. Parachuting, that you can still do it, but there is a reason to be apprehensive. Right? There are several other things. Parachuting is a good example, but you are going to be taken aback. But keep your control, right? Something is going to happen that is going to blow your damn mind. You're going to be like, what? That's going to happen. But then you should immediately regress to fixing the problem. That's what that's talking about. Neither rash nor hesitant or bewildered or at a loss. There will be times you will be at a loss. Life is too uncertain to have every certainty mapped out. Again, this is about self-control, though. It's about when it happens, maintain the control of yourself. Do not allow your passions to rule you, because even though you are meant to feel your passions, they are not meant to be your masters. Not obsequious, but not aggressive or paranoid either. Don't look for things that are going wrong. If things go wrong, then they went wrong. Do not bow to other people, but don't be aggressive. Generosity, charity, and honesty, all three wonderful things. The sense he gave of staying on the path rather than being kept on it. This is where Christianity fails. This is where Judaism fails. They put too much emphasis on the penalty for failure and not enough on the fact that not failing is its own reward. Living a good life makes you feel good. I can say that with some degree of certainty because I have lived a not good life. Part of the wisdom that I dispense from here is because I walked on the shadow side. I used to deal drugs. I used to fight. I used to do all kinds of things. But the path I'm on now is a happy one. It is a peaceful one. It is a great place to be. And I do not want to come off of the path. I'm not being kept here. I am choosing to walk it. It is a better place to be. That no one could ever have felt patronized by him or in a position to patronize him. That's another one that's a little bit different because I patronize my children. I'm their patron. There are people that you are meant to raise up and teach and instruct and show the way. You have to patronize them. You have to be their patron or their father. That doesn't mean you're literally their father, and it doesn't mean that you talk to them as if they are less. One of the reasons why I have such a wonderful relationship with my children is because while I do patronize them, it is not in a way that is patronizing, right? I am not talking down to my children ever. Ever since they were little, I talked to them and explained to them all of the things I haven't had to resort to because I said so. I never had to do that. I was able to defend every single point that I ever put on my children in a way that they could understand. Be that person. And a sense of humor. That is absolutely essential to a wonderful life, like to being a happy, healthy human being. You have to be able to laugh at things. Now, what I laugh at is not what you laugh at, right? And I'm not talking to you specifically in this. I'm talking to you, humanity, right? Adam Sandler comedy, not for me. Ace Ventura, I thought that shit was terrible. Most of what's on Netflix is absolute garbage. I don't laugh at that shit, but there's funny things out there. There are people who tell jokes that are fucking hilarious. I have laughed so hard I've cried. I have laughed so hard I've been out of breath. But it was never because somebody was getting hurt. It was never because somebody was picking on someone. My adopted father. Compassion. Unwavering adherence to decisions once he had reached them. Indifference to superficial honors. Hard work. Persistence. Listening to anyone who could contribute to the public good. His dogged determination to treat people as they deserved. A sense of when to push and when to back off. Putting a stop to the pursuit of boys. His altruism. not expecting his friends to keep him entertained at dinner or to travel with him unless they wanted to, and anyone who had to stay behind to take care of something always found him the same when he returned. His searching questions at meetings, a kind of single-mindedness almost, ever content with first impressions or breaking off the discussion prematurely. His constancy to friends, never getting fed up with them or playing favorites, self-reliance, always, and cheerfulness. His advanced planning, well in advance, and his discreet attention to even minor things. His restrictions on acclamations and all attempts to flatter him. His constant devotion to the empire's needs, his stewardship of the treasury, his willingness to take responsibility and blame for both. His attitude to the gods, no superstitiousness, and his attitude to men, no demagoguery, no currying favor, no pandering. Always sober, always steady, and never vulgar or prey to fads. The way he handled the material comforts that fortune had supplied him in such abundance, without arrogance and without apology. If they were there, he took advantage of them. If not, he didn't miss them. No one ever called him glib, or shameless, or pedantic. They saw him for what he was, a man tested by life, accomplished, unswayed by flattery, qualified to govern both himself and them. His respect for people who practiced philosophy, at least those who were sincere about it, but without denigrating the others or listening to them. His ability to feel at ease with people and put them at their ease without being pushy. His willingness to take adequate care of himself, not a hypochondriac or obsessed with his appearance, but not ignoring things either, with the result that he hardly ever needed medical attention or drugs or any sort of salve or ointment. This, in particular, his willingness to yield the floor to experts, in oratory, law, psychology, whatever, and to support them energetically so that each of them could fulfill his potential. That he respected tradition without needing to constantly congratulate himself for safeguarding our traditional values. Not prone to go off on tangents or pulled in all directions, but sticking with the same old places and the same old things. The way that he could have one of his migraines and then go right back to what he was doing, fresh and at the top of his game. That he had so few secrets, only state secrets, in fact, and not all that many of those. The way he kept public actions within reasonable bounds, games, building projects, distributions of money, and so on, because he looked to what needed doing and not the credit to be gained from doing it. No bathing at strange hours, no self-indulgent building projects, no concern for food or the cut and color of his clothes or having attractive slaves, the robe from his farm at Lorium, most of the things at Lanuvium, the way he accepted the custom agent's apology at Tusculum, etc. He never exhibited rudeness, lost control of himself, or turned violent. No one ever saw him sweat. Everything was to be approached logically and with due consideration, in a calm and orderly fashion, but decisively and with no loose ends. You could have said of him, as they say of Socrates, that he knew how to enjoy and abstain from things that most people find it hard to abstain from, and all too easy to enjoy. Strength, perseverance, self-control in both areas, the mark of a soul in readiness, indomitable. So there was quite a few things in here that we've already covered, right? But compassion, always strive to be compassionate. That does not mean that you are bowing down to other people's wants. It means that sometimes someone else's needs comes before yours. Unwavering adherence to decisions once you have reached them. Absolutely. Invest the time to ensure that you are on the correct side of any argument that you are involved in. And then don't move. Indifference to superficial honors. Hard work and persistence. We've already dealt with that. Listening to anyone who could contribute to the public good. That is something that we could definitely use more of today, and we are seeing that in American politics. If you're unaware, we have two people who have joined with President Trump's campaign, Robert F. Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard. both of whom do not necessarily ideologically align. But President Trump is willing to give them both the platform and the power to enact what they are experts in. His dogged determination to treat people as they deserved. Sometimes people deserve good and sometimes bad. A sense of when to push and when to back off. That's a skill that is acquired. Putting a stop to the pursuit of boys. Now, it is to be noted that in Roman society, it was not a frowned upon thing necessarily to have a pleasure boy. Now, in our day and time, we would be firing up wood chippers for some of the things that they considered perfectly normal and natural. Their sense of morality was not necessarily aligned to what we consider morals today. Morals are subjective, ethics are also subjective, and so this one's a weird one, but it seems not to be necessarily talking about those things, but instead the pursuit of what boys do. I'm going to go with that. I am not sure about that. Put aside the childish things. There are all kinds of childish things. I'm sure you can find one in your life. His altruism, be true, not expecting his friends to keep him entertained at dinner or to travel with him. That's self-explanatory, right? Anyone who had to stand behind to take care of something always found him the same when he returned. That's a little bit, I don't know. His searching questions at meetings. Ask good questions. Single-mindedness, never content with first impressions or breaking off the discussion prematurely. That is, again, something that we could benefit greatly from today because you should be informed. Right? That's what this is. Ask the right questions. Single-mindedly never be content with your first impression. That's a tough one. When you see someone and they are dressed in disrepair, you make assumptions. When you see someone and they are dressed finely, you make assumptions. And that doesn't necessarily prove to be the case. And if you're unclear about what that means, you should look at Joel Osteen or any of the prosperity preachers that are running around today. His constancy to friends, never getting fed up with them or playing favorites. Again, there is a time to cut off friends. Self-reliance always, and cheerfulness. There is a time to accept help, right? That is not self-reliance. But you should be striving to do your thing. You should be striving to be the best person that you can be, to be gainfully employed with products or services that you provide that you are compensated for. That's self-reliance. To find your own inner peace through the search for whatever God you may happen to believe in. That is self-reliance. Cheerfulness is the positive nature that we talked about before. It is not necessarily something everyone is built with, but you can get. Advanced planning. Pay attention to the things that might happen. Don't dwell on them. Don't get anxious, but understand that there could be this outcome from this thing, and so let's make a plan in case that happens. The restriction on acclamations and all attempts to flatter him. Do not piss on my boots, right? Don't kiss my butt. Don't tell me things that are not true. I would much rather hear the harsh truth than you lie to me about how I am great. His constant devotion to the empire's needs, his stewardship of the treasury, his willingness to take responsibility and blame for both. There is a saying I told my son when he went off, and take all of the blame and none of the responsibility, or none of the credit, right? So if you're in a project and you're in a leadership position, or if you are just in the position of all of us are doing this project together, if something goes wrong and you have blame in it, take it. Own it. Right away, fully and forthrightly. I made a mistake. This is what it was. Here's how I am going to correct it. But make sure that you share fully any credit due. Do not try to take credit for someone else's work. Instead, give it to them. Every single time. As much as you possibly can. It helps their growth and yours. The attitude towards the gods, no superstitiousness. Now, this one I completely differ with because I am superstitious. And by that, I do not mean that arbitrarily, right? I believe in things that other people do not. I make no equivocations about that. I stand on them. I believe in the electromagnetic world. I believe that you and me can manipulate the electromagnetic forces. Now, I believe that that is a possibility. I have instructions on how to do it. That is superstitious, right? I don't believe that throwing salt over your shoulder is going to do anything. I don't believe knocking on wood is going to do anything. But I do believe in some things that other people don't. And so I'm okay with a little bit of superstition. Some of it is foolish, but I ain't even going to tell you that most of the time. No demagoguery, no currying favor, no pandering. We've already talked about. Always sober. We've talked about too. It is meant to be a balance, not exclusion. Never vulgar or prey to fads. The way he handled the material comforts, again, we've already talked about that. Don't be glib or shameless or pedantic. All right, so don't just dismiss things. Don't be fully engaged in the wrong things. Or pedantic is arguing about things that really don't make a difference in anything. Respect people who practice philosophy. Don't denigrate people, listen to them. The ability to feel at ease with people, we've already talked about. Put them at their ease, we've already talked about. Take adequate care of yourself. This is, again, something that I am working on now that I have not necessarily worked on for most of my life. I have a short where I talk about this on TikTok. It is one of my pinned videos where I started taking care of myself. It was December 31st of 2019 when I began that particular journey. And it has been a wild one. When I first started, it took me 45 minutes to walk 1 mile, and now I am up to 3 in under 45 minutes. Take adequate care of yourself. That does not mean that you need to be in the gym every single day, striving to get cut or ripped or buff. But be healthy. Be able to run a quarter mile. Be able to walk a mile. Be able to lift a heavy load. Work to have the fullness of your body so that your body will serve you for the fullness of your life. The willingness to yield the floor to experts is, again, something that we can find in Donald Trump. And I know this is setting some people off, but I step on toes over here. Trump is doing this with RFK and with Tulsi, and he has done that, and that was mainly his problem in his first term. He got in there with a purpose in mind, and the people who were already there had a contrary purpose. And he was willing to yield the floor to their expertise, even though their expertise was not necessarily true, Dr. Fauci. But you lend credence to the experts when you are in a discussion or a meeting at work, for say. Somebody is there who knows something that you do not. They are an expert in something. You have accountants, you have lawyers, you have whatever. Listen to them willingly. Give the person who knows what they're talking about the floor to talk about the thing they know about. Respect tradition without needing to constantly congratulate yourself. I break traditions. It's one of the things I do. I respect them, but if they're not correct, I break them. I have a whole playlist on that. Don't go off on tangents, pulled in all directions, but stick with the same old places. That can be a problem for some of my informative people, and if you don't know what that means, again, check back with the MTI playlist. The way he could have done, have a migraine and go back to work. Don't live a secretive life. If you have to keep it secret, then you know it's wrong. Almost every time. There are good secrets, right? Gender reveals. Or, hey, we're having a baby. You didn't know that because we were scared we were going to lose it. There's secrets that you're meant to keep. But, for the most part, you should not be living in secret. If you're having to hide a substance from your spouse, you're doing the wrong thing. Keep public actions within reasonable bounds. That is something that our government could definitely take some advice in, right? Do not get excessive. No bathing at strange hours, no self-indulgent building process. That's a continuation of that. Be responsible. Don't exhibit rudeness. Lose control of yourself or turn violent. And again, there are times when those things are called for. I am not for exclusion. I am for moderation. But it is almost never that you are meant to be violent. It is almost never that you are meant to be rude. But there are times. There's only one way to deal with a bully. There's only one way to deal with a bully. He knew how to enjoy and abstain from things. Find the balance. Alright, I think this wraps up in Gods. I didn't read through it, but I think this part's a little bit long, so this will probably be the end, even if it's not. The Gods. That I had good grandparents, a good mother and father, a good sister, good teachers, good servants, relatives, friends, almost without exception. And that I never lost control of myself with any of them, although I had it in me to do that, and I might have, easily. But thanks to the gods, I was never put in that position, and so escaped the test. I'm not going to come back to that. That I wasn't raised by my grandfather's girlfriend for longer than I was. That I didn't lose my virginity too early, and I didn't enter into adulthood until it was time. Put it off even. Well, that's revelatory. Now, if you don't know me, and you probably don't, this is a new playlist. I have had a problem here. I was molested as a child. I was sexually promiscuous as a child as a result of that. I had several consensual partners when I was a child. Most of them were my age or right around there. Some of them were not. So I can commiserate with this. That I wasn't raised by my grandfather's girlfriend longer than I was, and that I didn't lose my virginity too early are probably related. And I can absolutely commiserate with that, because one of the banes of my existence is the fact that I was so involved in sexuality at a young age. I hate that about myself. It is part of who I am. It is something I am working to overcome still today at almost 50 years old. That I had someone, as a ruler and as a father, who could keep me from being arrogant and make me realize that even at court you can live without a troop of bodyguards and gorgeous clothes, lamps, sculpture, the whole charade. That you can behave almost like an ordinary person without seeming slovenly or careless as a ruler, or when carrying out official obligations. And again, this one we have already talked about in part, and there's no reason to extrapolate on it. It's already a long video. That I had the kind of brother I did. One whose character challenged me to improve my own. One whose love and affection enriched my life. That my children weren't born stupid or physically deformed. That I wasn't more talented in rhetoric or poetry or other areas. If I'd have felt that I was making better progress, I might never have given them up. That's some honesty right there. That I conferred on the people who brought me up the honors they seemed to want early on, instead of putting them off, since they were still young, with the hope that I'd do it later. Be quick with your praise, but not heap it on. That I knew Apollonius, Rusticus, and Maximus. That I was shown, clearly and often, that what it would be like to live as nature requires. The gods did all they could through their gifts, their help, their inspiration, to ensure that I could live as nature demands. And if I failed, it's no one's fault but mine, because I didn't pay attention to what they told me or to what they taught me, practically, step by step. That my body has held out, especially considering the life I've led. That I've never laid a finger on Benedicta or on Theodotus, and that even later, when I was overcome by passion, I recovered from it. This is one of the things that I am most proud of in my entire life. My children have never heard me raise my voice in anger to my wife. Not one single time ever in their entire life. That is not something that I can say about anyone ever in my family, but it is something that my children can say about me. And that makes me proud. Anytime that we have argued, it has never degenerated to the point of denigration. It has never degenerated to the point of verbal arguments. We are able to logically and calmly talk about the things, even if it requires removing ourselves for a period of time before we attempt it. And that is one of the most proud things I am of. Like, I have more pride in that than pretty much anything else I have ever done. That even though, and they never really heard that from them either. They both got one good, both of them. They were both really young, and I was not fully in control of myself. But even then, it was not excessive, right? I did spank my children, don't get that wrong. But it was spanking with correction. It was not spanking with anger. My children always knew exactly what they did wrong before they were punished and after they were punished. They were never given physical correction first. First, it was a verbal correction. Then it was a timeout. And then it was physical correction. And every single time, it was explained exactly why. Exactly why. There was never any, because I said so's. There was never any, you're going to do it because. It was always with a reason. And they were able to convey it back to me at the end of the punishment. That was part of getting out of punishment. You had to explain what you did wrong. And so I'm proud of that. Like, I was punished so many times, beaten so many times for things I did not know or I didn't even do. And even though I was often upset with Rusticus, I never did anything I would have regretted later. That even though she died young, at least my mother spent her last years with me. That whenever I felt like helping someone who was short of money or otherwise in need, I never had to be told that I had no resources to do it with. Oh, God, I wish that. And that it was never put in that position myself of having to take something from someone else. I have been in need, and I have been the one to extend the hand, and I can understand both sides of that. I have been blessed that whenever the need has been great, I have been able to do, but I am not where I want to be with that, right? A lot of that has to do with the physical problems. But my goal is to give away things, right? It is what I want to do with my life. I have a goal for this channel, and it is that. We're not going to get into it because this video is long, but I have several times before talked about the purpose of this channel, and it is to help people by giving away a lot of things. That I have the wife I do. Obedient, loving, and humble. Well, I won't go with obedient, but that my children had competent teachers. Remedies granted through dreams when I was coughing blood, for instance, and having fits of dizziness, and the one at Qaeda. That when I became interested in philosophy, I didn't fall into the hands of charlatans. I didn't get bogged down in writing treatises and become absorbed by logic chopping or preoccupied with physics. And for the most part, we have already dealt with that too. All things for which we need the help of fortune and the gods. And so that is going to end book 1, and that's where we are going to go ahead and wrap this up. This was a good little exposit, right? I wanted to get this in here because there are a lot of people who live their lives by these things, and these are things that we need to talk about. I am here earnestly to dispense as much knowledge and wisdom as I can. I am almost 50 years old, and I have lived a harder life than most people. I don't say that with, pride. I have lived a very hard life. There is a lot of things in my history. It's too much to go into in a single video for sure, but because of those things, I am in a position to dispense a little bit of wisdom about some things. Now, some things I have had direct revelations from, and some people don't like that. It's too superstitious for them, but, remedies coming in dreams is a little bit superstitious too. And so, I don't have the problem that some people do with that particular section, right? The woo-woo for me is the area in which I operate. I wanted to talk about these things, and we are talking about these things because they are real things, right? What we talked about today are things that can help improve your life. They helped improve mine. They have helped improve some other people's, and so I'm here to throw them away freely and give them away as fast as I can. Hopefully, I brought a little bit of enlightenment, not too much confusion, and possibly even a little bit of levity to some very serious topics, some of them confusing. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment. Let me know if you agree or disagree. If it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. And if you really like what I'm doing over here, hit me with that super thanks, because I am not a communist, and I do want to give away money. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitch Take. Peace.